So today, immigration is a really controversial subject in our society, and I really wanted to learn more about it because I wasn't sure what was actually true from what I was hearing from the media and what was just blown out of proportion or what was even lies. So I learned a new word when I was learning about immigration, xenophobia. Xenophobia is simply the fear of people from another country who you don't know. Xenophobia has existed since mankind existed, and it has existed since America has been founded. Americans dislike the Chinese when they came over. We disliked the Irish. Then later on, we disliked the people from the Middle East because of the terrorism attacks of 2001. I think xenophobia exists a lot because we don't personally know the people from different countries. We don't understand that they have families, and we aren't personally connected with them. So what I want to focus on a lot today is why our immigration system is broken. I feel like our immigration system is broken simply because our Congress is really polarized. And this is partially because of xenophobia. The media accuses both parties of being racist towards people. And I would personally think that xenophobia, quite frankly, shouldn't have anything to do with the politics of immigration, but unfortunately it does. So I have 3 stories, personal stories to tell today that show how the immigration system is broken. My first one is the most impersonal, I guess, but I really like to eat strawberries, and one day I got strawberries in a plastic container that come from the grocery store. These strawberries were not homegrown because strawberry season wasn't then, and I noticed on the top it said grown in California, and I was like, oh, okay, and I was eating the strawberry, and I noticed that it was really cheap, and I thought, oh, well, maybe these strawberries were harvested by illegal immigrants. And I wondered this because California is where a lot of the Mexicans will come up, and that's where a lot of our illegal immigrants used to come from. So that kind of shows that how it demonstrates how illegal immigrants, our system kind of rewards them rather than prevents them from coming in because we provide labor and we provide jobs for them. My second story happened in February when I went on a missions trip to Barbados, and I met a girl named Gabby. I was talking to her, and she told me that she came from Venezuela, which is in Central America. And as a lot of you guys know, Venezuela is in economic crisis right now. They have a lot of problems, but I was talking to her, and I noticed that she had her arm in a sling, and I asked her, Gabby, why do you have your arm in a sling? She had a really heavy Hispanic accent, so I couldn't quite get all the details, but she told me that she was trying to get out of Venezuela because she felt like God had called her to missions, and while she was crossing the border, she sprained her wrist. So that was kind of sad, but right now, when I asked her if I could use her in my presentation today, she said yes, but she told me to make sure that you guys know that she didn't leave Venezuela because of the economic crisis. She left because she felt like God was calling her to missions. But a lot of people from Central America are trying to travel to the U.S. to escape the poverty there and get gang violence, such as MS-13. But the problem with that is that refugees can't become legal. They can't have a legal temporary pass in the U.S. unless they're persecuted against for religious beliefs. So people can't come to America and get jobs legally unless they are persecuted for religious beliefs or persecuted for religion, and poverty isn't a reason to get a legal pass. So all these families who are coming from Central America have to work in U.S. illegally, and only 20% of them actually get accepted, are able to get passes. And this is really sad because all these people have to work illegally in America, and they can't really get refuge. My third story It happened in 5th grade when I met our new janitor named Mr. Samara. Mr. Samara married my 2nd grade teacher, and he was from the Middle East. And fast forward 3 years, and I overhear Mr. Samara talking to one of the teachers. He has this really cool accent, which I can't imitate for you, or else I would. And he was talking to a teacher, expressing his frustration that he couldn't get his license. And this was really confusing towards me because as an 8th grader, I had seen Mr. Samara riding on his John Deere tractor, mowing the grass, and it seemed like I knew Mr. Samara could drive, so why couldn't he get his license? So I asked Mr. Samara, why can't you get your license? And he told me it's because he couldn't obtain U.S. citizenship. He had had his green card for 3 years, over 3 years, and he was married to a U.S. citizen. And usually, according to the law, you should be able to get your citizenship if you have been married to a U.S. citizen and have been in the U.S. for 3 years. But he was still having trouble. So this kind of demonstrates that our immigration system rewards those who come in illegally because it's pretty easy to bypass the system, our legalization system, naturalization system, rather than playing by the rules like Mr. Samara did and going through all those legal loopholes because there's so many. And I forgot to use my slides, but those are the strawberries. This brings me to my next thing. While I was researching this topic, I learned about Nikki Haley. I can really appreciate Nikki Haley because she's the first American Indian U.S. UN ambassador for the United Nations. Her parents themselves were immigrants from India, and she says that our immigration system should welcome anyone who is willing to work hard, abide by our laws, and love our traditions. And I feel like our immigration system today does not do that. So, for my whole life, there's been 3 presidents. The span of my whole 17 years. The first president was President George W. Bush. My very first memory of anything politically was of George W. Bush, because he always had this wordy expression on his face. I just remember that. Anyway, so George W. Bush got very close to passing a comprehensive immigration plan. He worked with Nancy Pelosi, who was a Democrat House Speaker for the House of Representatives, and they both formulated together a plan that should have gotten passed by Congress because both of them worked on it, so both parties should have accepted it, but they didn't. And then Barack Obama, he was pretty focused on immigration too. That's part of the reason why he got elected. But even though he was able to give 800,000 Dreamers work permits, neither was he able to pass a comprehensive immigration plan. And then there's Donald Trump. Donald Trump has focused a lot on immigration, and probably everyone has heard about his wall, but he still has not come up with a plan that both parties agree on. Something that you have to know about Donald Trump is that he really likes to get things done, and he gets really frustrated with the polarism in Congress. And so he felt like the only way that he could get his immigration funds for immigration, was to declare a national emergency in the name of immigration crisis in last February. There was no immigration crisis really. There wasn't a reason to declare a national emergency, but he felt like that was the only way. So all these things kind of just demonstrate that our immigration system is really broken, and this is because Congress cannot agree on a good way to fix it. This is a problem because every time something bad happens in another country and we get an influx of immigrants, we have no idea what to do with them. Congress argues over it, and they're just standing there at the border, and we can't figure out what to do with them. And you see polarism in not only the problem of immigration, but in poverty. We can't agree on a good solution, and this happens in minimum wage. We can't decide what price to raise the minimum wage to. And in economics, we learn that there are solutions to these problems, but unfortunately, Congress just cannot decide on how to solve them. And so, I just want to encourage you to write to your representative to say, hey, we the people are not impressed with how you cannot agree on anything. We feel like we elect you into office in order to take care of these problems, and you aren't doing that. And the only way that they're going to improve is if we put the pressure on, because the president can't help them improve, because the president is supposed to work with Congress, and he's not responsible for them. It's us who are responsible for them, and if we don't do anything, our country's going to fail. So I wrote to our representative is Lloyd Smucker, and I wrote to him. Dr. Critter checked my letter to him, so it doesn't have to be anything really complicated. Just tell him how you feel about this, because as a nation, united we stand, but divided we fall.